We cannot forever kick the can into the future. The Japanese
Can't
are not
fight.
going to be able to do it.
Nope.
And clearly there are countries that have experienced collapse, but there are some countries that have pulled back from the brink. I'm thinking of New Zealand in the early 80s. I think it was 83. I'm thinking of Ireland before the Irish Tiger in 1990. They were really close to insolvency. I'm thinking about Argentina 2 years ago when Javier Milei was elected. Would that we could have a Milei, right? Like
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Would that work, or is our system just too unwieldy and different to be able to do that?
It would work because, I mean, look, you can't fight math, at least not forever, right? Math wins in the end. It's just that simple. Now, Javier Milei shows up to Argentina and sees a far worse condition than anything we've seen since the Great Depression, and maybe worse even than that, but I'll leave that to the economic historians to sort out. It's not relevant to our story here. If we could vote in people like that with policy aims like he brought to Argentina, things could turn around rather quickly.
What kind of things that he's done, if you know for sure, just a couple, could we do here that could right the ship? I mean, one thing is to just stop spending growth, right? No more beautiful bills.
That would be incredibly helpful, right? Don't spend money you don't have. It's kind of like what your mother said to you when you were a young Max Borders. Don't buy things you can't afford. That's really good advice for individuals and for nations. But the problem is that politicians get elected by giving the people what they want, not what they need.
Which is goodies and tanks.
That's right. Goodies, tanks, shiny objects of all kinds, Obama phones. I mean, there's a million different idiotic things that people have wanted and have gotten from the government. And look, Milei got in and he said, this is untenable. If we keep walking down this road, there's literally nothing we're ever going to be able to do to recapture any form of fiscal sanity. And he got elected, and that was a miracle, right? Did anybody really see that coming? I sure didn't. I mean, look, I'm not an Argentine politics expert, but I never thought a libertarian would get elected to anything.
Well, and the stellar performance of the Argentine economy is just, it is proof in the pudding for everybody who said talk shit about market fundamentalism or free market fundamentalism. Remember, that was a term of derision for years.
Yeah.
But we can go back to Germany post-war, and of course we had the Marshall Plan, which the Keynesians all say, oh, it was because of the Keynesian, dollar drop after the war that the Germans had this tiger economy after the war. But they had also good institutions, and they were fiscally austere and conservative, and to the extent that they used the Marshall Plan investments, it was to rebuild their infrastructure. And after that in the 60s and 70s, they were just taken off.
And that they were disallowed from spending too terribly much on their military, which, had led to a couple of problems in the previous decades. Didn't hurt, right? It didn't hurt. Now, I don't want to plant false hope anywhere. If we cut military spending to zero in America, and I mean literally zero in America, we still wouldn't be close to balancing the budget.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the scope of our problem. There's no
people are always
answer.
saying we can't do anything with the entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Yeah, you have to.
You have to.
You really don't have a choice.
So sooner or later, this is the calculus a politician has to involve himself with. Can I cut Social Security and still get reelected?
Right.
If the answer to that question is no, Social Security will never be cut.
And if Social Security is never cut and we drive ourselves into a fiscal ditch, we become insolvent or what have you, then it's just a matter of inflation. Then we start looking more and more every day like Argentina, correct?
Argentina, like Venezuela.
Well,
more likely.
Like
Argentina. Yeah. I think that's exactly right. That would be my diagnosis.
So the conditions around Milei Because one could argue, I think, with Roger Nomics in New Zealand in the early 80s, they went through a similar problem of we're gonna become insolvent, we're gonna go bust, we've got to do something. And it was a socialist government who realized that austerity, they had no choice but to implement austerity measures.
Yeah.
And for our listeners who don't like economic big words like that, you know, it just means slow the spending, stop the spending, privatize things that shouldn't be nationalized. That's the kind of thing.
Tighten your belt and cut it out.
And the socialists and the fiscal leftists in New Zealand knew they had to do that. They had no other choice. So it was like, it doesn't matter whether it's Malay or not. At some point, somebody's got to come in and do just what your mama told you, or what you said my mama told me, and she did.
You think about Margaret Thatcher at times like this, who said the problem with socialism is that you run out of other people's money. Right?
Yeah.
And look, if there's no money to socialize, all is lost. Well, what now? Well, good luck to you. And I'll remind, you know, not you maybe, but to some of our listeners today, man's natural condition is pretty grim, right? We belong in caves. We worked ourselves to where we are now, to where I can sit here in Tucson, Arizona, in the middle of a desert in air-conditioned comfort with 5 supermarkets within 8 minutes of my house. These are miracles. These are not our natural condition. Our natural condition.
Lavishly to regale this audience with your wisdom.
Yeah, well,
I'm just kidding. But
except for that, everything that we've said thus far has been very true. But, you know, people lose sight of what our natural position in this world is. And if you can't remember that, you're probably far too optimistic about what you think we can achieve or what you think normal should be. And I think that's dangerous.
Yeah, it is. It's dangerous thinking. It's well, the starting point for the thinking I sometimes wonder is asking the question, why is a country poor, rather than why is country Y rich, right? So we tend to want to say, why are these sub-Saharan African countries poor? And there are some diagnostic answers that one could provide. But the better question is, what is it about those African countries that they lack? Or what is it about the rich countries that they possess? What is it that they're doing that's right in terms of their institutional substrate? Because we have gotten away from those basics, and I think you and I probably agree mostly about what those basics are. I'd say more or less.
That's right.
We continue to veer away slowly from those basics to try to have more and more economic interventionism on the part of whether it's on behalf of rich bankers who want to be bailed out, or private equity or whatever, that's probably coming, or both. People who want their student loans covered because we said, oh, take student loans. Everybody needs an education. Nobody needs to mow grass and learn how to do wiring in a house, right?
It's a public good.
It's a public good. Let's just shower it on everybody, and there'll be wonderful things that come out of it. What has happened is the personal debt has mounted. The national debt has certainly mounted. The only developed country that's worse than us is Japan, and they're hurting mightily. Europe is looking like it's going into a ditch as well. We've got a global problem, 100 trillion around the world in collective debt, and yet we have politicians like those in New York, like the one in New York, who's about to get elected mayor, who thinks it's a wonderful thing to freeze prices on housing and create nationalized grocery stores.
What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? If you want city-owned grocery stores, you might as well say you don't want food on the shelves, because there won't be any. It's not going to happen, right? Sure, you'll be able to walk in and get this or that, but will you be able to walk in and find a super Walmart? No, you will not. You heard it here first, right? Rent control. If ever there was, if I could get rid of one pernicious policy, it would be rent control. Because who does it hurt? It hurts people at the absolute margin, right? Those people who teeter between being able to and not being able to afford a home. And when you control rent, allegedly to help them, you end up making more of them homeless than ever before. Unbelievable. And when is it that we decided as a people that what sounds good is great and evidence doesn't matter?
So the supply of housing stock in a city and relative to its demand has no bearing whatsoever on its price or someone's willingness to invest in more housing units in said city.
Crazy.
Let's just completely get rid of that idea, which we have mountains of empirical evidence to show.
Mountains. If there's one thing that literally every economist could agree on, it would be this.
Including
this
Paul
and
Krugman.
minimum wage.
Yeah.
Right, minimum wage is stupidity on ice. The minimum wage is zero. And it's the same set of circumstances, right? You price people out of the labor market just like you price them out of the housing market, right? They can't compete to get a job with the skills they have because now the price of hourly labor has gone up so much that they're not worth it. Notice I didn't say they weren't worth something as human beings. I said they weren't worth something as hourly workers. The same way I'm not worth $5 million an hour to anyone, but, maybe in my own head. Some people are not worth $15 an hour. When you look at these living wage arguments, all you really see are people who have turned a blind eye to the weakest among us who should be getting the most support, but who end up getting exactly none. And I'll give you another real-world example. We moved to Arizona from Utah, and the minimum wage, much higher in Arizona. I think it's like $13.50 or some such thing. And all three of my children said, the way children do, I want a job. And they went out to look for jobs and couldn't find them. Why? Because at $13.50, all kinds of people entered back into the workforce who had exited. Retirees, stay-at-home moms, because it was just worth it given how much they could make. Who didn't get job training? Young people. The people who needed it the most.